I couldn't get a job in television until Simon Morris's dad, who was Alan Morris, who was the Director General at the time. He used to go to Plymouth House and have dinner there, and I was a waiter there trying to make some money. And he told me I was really good at my job one night, and I said, "Do you know what my job really is?" Within a week I was working at television and as a TV assistant, and there was a job called TVA then. Basically it was running around getting glasses of water for the stars. I got to be an assistant director by training, and then I would be on the floor managing close to home. That meant I'd have to go to all the rehearsals, know where the cameras were plotted to be. Come the day on the set with Brian Linane up in the booth. He knew I wanted to be a director, and you weren't allowed to direct if you were a floor manager. You had to actually become a director first. So he would call out on the comms, and I'd hear him say, "Oh, Steve, I think I'm getting a nosebleed. You better come up and take the next 2 scenes." And he'd go out the back and have a cigarette. So I'd go up in there and I'd go, "Right, here we go." Oh, Tony Isaac. He was half Lebo, and like me, I'm a full Lebanese. Tony had a magic about him that I don't think that anyone else has had at television. He had an aura around him which was an approachable aura, whereas all the others was kind of head prefect, bully boy type, I'm smarter than you are. Tony's one was like welcoming everybody into his web. Of course I met him on Close to Home because he was the producer. And because of him I met Michael Anthony Noonan and Keith Aberdeen, who were his kind of cohorts on it, and the other directors. And then we progressed to the governor, and they just simply sucked me along as assistant director. The governor was torture to do, not because it wasn't fun, it was outrageous. It was because there was so much pressure from outside on that production. We felt guilty. We were made to feel guilty with every cent we spent on it. But Tony took us all on a trip to Tokomaru Bay to meet Maori leaders way before the shoot started. Quite a lot of the crew, busloads of us, went up there, and we stayed on that marae for 3 days, and we hammered out how Maori expected to be portrayed in this project that we were coming on to. I'd never met Maori before that. He was totally in his element with those Maori people, and they loved him and respected him. That film never would have happened without Tony. He led from the front. He'd work 24/7. A new head of drama was appointed, one of the ex-directors of Close to Home, and a kind of thrusting new producer dude. He called me into his office and he said, "Okay, you've been directing these people for quite a while now. What I want you to do is go through a list of the cast, the core cast, and write out all the things that they've done and had done to them over the period from the beginning of the show." And I kind of didn't know really why. I said, "Why?" He said, "I just want to find out if there's anything left the writers can put them through." You know? So I did this, and then quite shortly after that, one of the core characters disappeared in a car crash, which wasn't even seen on screen, and then 2 others went straight after that. And I think it was deemed that I probably shouldn't be around the drama department for a little while until the dust settled, because the next thing I knew I was in the documentary unit. I made a documentary in my whole life, didn't know any of the stuff. This young woman who had been at drama school, her name was Fiona Samuel. She was a bright young thing, gorgeous, real pushy, and kind of in my face a bit. And she gave me, I think, a 4-typed page treatment for a series called The Marching Girls. Oh, yeah. It centres on an over-the-hill marching girls team in their 20s, should have given up years ago. Their leader got pregnant, so they had to get a new leader, and she's only 16 and she's into heavy metal music. So she persuades them they should have one last all-out who cares, go at the national championships dressed in chains and doing a heavy metal routine, right? Well, along the episodes, you meet each of the women in their lives, and it's really a kind of drama about the status of women in the 1980s in New Zealand. All the writers were female, all the script editors were female, so I started looking for female directors. There was a bit of a wall between the masculine world of television one and the feminist ideal of the marching girls. And it came to a head when I decided that Fiona needed to be at all the rushes. No one ever invited a writer to rushes, let alone a female writer who wasn't part of the television world. And the fact that she would comment on performances and the director's choice of who dominated a scene, we did what we wanted to do, but it was very much, I think, by the end of it, it was me and Fiona against the world. They wouldn't put it on air. They wouldn't give me an on-air date. And I'd been hammered by that process of making that. So I took an opportunity to resign. I thought, really, to hell with it, you know? This is not what I want to do. So I took the opportunity to resign, but I did it in a diplomatic way, which basically said I wanted to start a company of my own and do things of my own, and I would still be available for contracts to direct. Nikki Saker said to me it was time to do a documentary on the life of Bruno Lawrence. I knew Bruno moderately well. I'd floor managed gigs that he was in. I'd even acted alongside him a couple of times. And I knew what a hoon he was, let's face it. I'd run into him in Auckland and he'd get me stoned and he'd get me into trouble. I mean, Bruno was trouble wherever he went. He was great, fantastic. Wish he was around, you know. I thought, do it chronologically, but put a cast on each part of his life, you know, like Bruno the family man, Bruno the incredibly inventive drummer, Bruno the womanizer, Bruno the drunk. And yes, yeah, I made that directorial decision to actually compartmentalize him like that, and then the question line followed that. So everybody knew what I was doing. There was no hiding anything. I don't think you could do it any other way. Once we found Sam, the little Samoan boy, we knew the film was going to rock. I remember the night in the swimming pool after the kid had been beaten up by his father and he'd refused to swim for the swimming coach. And there he was in the swimming pool in the dark, swimming lengths. And Marshall goes down, puts his arms around him. Everyone was saying, looking at me, waiting for me to say cut. The boy was wailing, and so was Marshall. And I couldn't say cut. And then I did. Nobody said a word. We all just got out of the pool and went home. And I never had a moment like that in a film in my life. Here's my grandmother, she's 86 years old, she can't go back to Lebanon, hasn't been able to go back for 25 years because of the civil war. She's pining for the place. 2 rental cars. You couldn't rent a car in Beirut. They had to come from Tel Aviv across the Israeli border to the hotel we were in. That immediately got the tongues wagging. So everywhere we went, we were followed, we were stopped by the Syrians, by Hamas, we were stopped by Hezbollah, we were stopped by the Christian soldiers, we were stopped by everybody. And if we stopped in a town, we were surrounded by people who just were incredibly inquisitive. What are you doing? Who's the old woman? You know, it was really hard. Gerald Sutherland said, I'll give you 70 grand and 6 months to prove it's possible. no one giving me 70 grand to prove I can do something or not. I thought, wow, this is different. So got together and we designed Golden Days, the old junk shop that comes to life. And I performed it to her and Cliff Whiting. And she said, make me that. You got 11 months. It's $1 million, less the 70 I've already given you. That was 9 episodes of a television series. James and I worked really closely together on it, got it going. Then I brought in Dean as the designer, and then everybody else came on board. And then everybody was going, wow, can you make me one of those? What about this? What about that? Then we got together and we formed Story Inc. And we do visitor attractions. Visitor experiences is what we like to call it, but essentially they're all attractions and they're site-specific, and we do them all over the world. We've done New Zealand Pavilion for World Expo twice. It's really exciting, and I think I shoot more film now than I did when I was at television.